We're always telling your stories, and it's time someone tells ours. We're humans first, journalists second. We chose this career to give you a voice. Now we're voicing ours. It's true, journalism has much room for improvement, but not all hope is lost, and we want your trust back by humanizing one journalist at a time. We're sharing with you what we go through to bring you the news. The pain, the tears, the trauma, and the mental health struggles. It's painful, and sometimes we even work 2 jobs to make ends meet. But we all have something in common: the passion, the joy, and the love we feel for storytelling and holding the powerful accountable. That includes holding ourselves accountable. So here are stories from us. This is how we want to help improve the news industry. The Awakened Journalist is proud to present Media Healers by Emiliana Molina Fajardo. Hi everyone, welcome back to the Awakened Journalist and our special project Media Healers. Today we have the pleasure of having with us Hannah Joy. She's a journalist and community advocate. She's also first generation Ethiopian Eritrean American, and she's passionate about empowering the youth. She worked as a TV reporter and anchor at WSIL-TV, the leading news provider in Southern Illinois, and before that, she was at Fox 5 in Atlanta as a field producer and a digital content creator. Hannah has her bachelor's in business administration from Georgia Tech, and she holds a master's degree from Northwestern University from Medill School of Journalism. She also transitioned from the news industry in 2018 to start her own brand and her own media platform, HannahJoyTV, as well as the Promote the Positivity movement. And right now, she also holds a job as executive director of Protect the Vote, which is a voting rights organization. She is based out of Georgia. So Hannah, welcome and thank you for agreeing to do this interview.
Thank you so much for having me, Miliana, and just really proud of you and grateful to be in this space with you on this platform.
Thank you. Awesome. Thank you so much. All right, so let's start with the basics. Why or how did you decide to become a journalist?
Definitely the basics. Why? I just was curious about people's stories. I used to work in the sports industry, so that was how I first got my dose of journalism. I would see the reporters on the field, on the sidelines, on the on the basketball court, on the football fields, and I just took a interest in their positions and wanting to see who were these players, right? Who were these athletes? And so that's what initially led me wanting to interview people about their stories, because I knew that all these athletes had stories beyond the field, beyond the court. They're not just playing basketball or football. And I wanted to bring that out of them to talk about what charities were they supporting, what causes were they backing, how did they get to where they were, type of thing. And so that ultimately led to me doing reporting with the Georgia Tech women's basketball team and the Georgia Tech football team, and then doing some stories here and there with professional athletes. And then of course, going to Northwestern. And that's when I realized I love journalism in all kinds of ways, not just sports journalism. So that's sort of how I got in.
And so far, what do you think has been one of the most rewarding experiences in your career?
The most rewarding experience is the people and being able to tell their stories and seeing so many moments that went viral. When I was working as a reporter at WSIL-TV, I was able to cover holidays related to Ethiopian and Eritrean culture. And, these stories went viral. So like literally people in Australia were sending me messages, and all over the world, even in East Asia, and just saying how much it meant for them to see these stories being shared, being told on a bigger scale in ways that it had not been before. So I think those are some of the most rewarding moments of my career, being able to highlight those stories that were not told as often.
For sure. And I think you also did a little bit of that while you were working as a TV reporter and anchor back in Southern Illinois. How was that experience for you working at that news station?
Yeah, I did. I definitely did. It was an adjustment. I think I'm a big city girl. Okay. I'm from Atlanta. Look, I like my city life, but moving to
That was a small town, right?
Small town, super small town. I mean, it was like I remember like my first week, I came home from work and I saw like 8 deer standing outside my door of my apartment. I'm just like, all right, I'm gonna wait till they leave and then get out of my car,
Yeah.
and then even just like the winters, like so much snow. And, I remember like there was snow all over my car and I didn't have like the proper brush. And I remember grabbing, I think my neighbor was telling me, yeah, you could just, get a broom or something. And we were just cracking up, but just obviously there's the environment adjustments, like different culture and everything, but the people were really sweet for the most part. You did have outliers. You did have some people who were, racist or just, wanted to discriminate for various reasons, but I would say majority was a great experience. And I made the most of it. I knew I was there and I wanted to, if I had an opportunity to anchor the 6 a.m. or the early morning show, I'm taking it. If I'm going to be the lead nightside reporter, I'm taking it. Like I was so hungry and I really took advantage of it and made the most of the experience while I was there.
And I think you did an amazing job at it too, because you were also, I remember following you on social media, and you were also very determined at being true to yourself, to your culture, and your essence. And I love that because that's so hard to do in news sometimes. I think we're definitely improving, but there's still, I guess, a stigma on the way that anchors and reporters are supposed to look and dress and act and speak. And, I don't know if you want to go a little bit deeper into that, but I think you were definitely great at honoring your culture.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And you're right. There's unfortunately still stigma and people are told to dress a certain way or wear your hair a certain type of way or look a certain way. And for me, when I got there, mind you, this is a very like conservative market and predominantly white community. And, you have a lot of people with Trump signs at the time and Confederate flags. And it was, just to kind of paint the picture. But again, you had a lot of people who were also like very welcoming and loving and everything. So when I was there, I realized, I was one of the few Black people on television in that whole market. And so when you're in that position, you realize like you are a voice, you're a representation, it matters. And as I continued on at that station, I remember how I even got the idea to do the New Year's story, because there was Ethiopian New Year falls on September 11th, and Eritreans celebrated as well. And I remember there was an event happening in Chicago, and I just was like, I want to go to the event, and I had my cell phone, and I said, I'll just get some cell phone footage and I'll edit something together. And, and I asked my news director if I could put it online. And he said, yeah, you can go ahead and put it online. So I went, I did it. I put it online, Facebook. I mean, that was the first story that just went ballistic, like went viral. People couldn't believe that an ABC station was even giving attention to an Ethiopian New Year holiday, and you see that with Chinese New Year, with other cultures, so why not Ethiopian New Year, and why not, highlight that as well. So that led to then me saying, okay, well, I scratched the surface a little bit. Now the next holiday. And then I did Christmas, which falls on January 6th instead of, or January 7th instead of December 25th. So then I got to do that. And then, so it's like, I'm just getting a little bit more and more and more and more. And then finally, I was like, well, okay, I'm able to cover the holidays. The next time I cover the holiday, I want to wear my traditional hair because I already done wore a traditional dress on TV. Why not my traditional hair? These braids called like sharuba and alpaso. It's a style that Ethiopian and Eritrean women wear. And I got the approval, I did get approval from management. And that's when, I said, I want to represent, I feel comfortable in my skin, in my braids. And obviously it came with pushback. It came with criticism. It came with hateful comments as expected, but it didn't stop me from rocking them till my last day. So that was awesome.
I love that. I love that. And I can feel like I get the chills because I'm so excited for you. I was so excited for you when I saw you do that. I was like, wow, Hannah is just absolutely killing it. You're being yourself, you asked for the permissions, you got them. And that's just so amazing to see that news directors as well in a small market, in a market that's predominantly white, were open to allowing you to just be your authentic self. Um,
Mhm.
and I want to ask you, obviously that was an amazing moment for you. Um, where you were able to honor your culture and your essence here in the United States. But I'm sure it wasn't easy to also hear the criticism or the backlash. Is there a comment in particular that you remember that you think, really touched you or was impactful in some kind of way?
There were some that I remember, and you're right. Like there was a couple, there was some comments in particular that I won't forget. And you got the backlash from people saying, "Oh, these braids look like they came from outer space. These braids look like they came out of a cheap movie. These braids, this is a very negative image. Why are you projecting this on the viewers? Or saying that they look like they came from like just different things. Like they would just say, and those types of messages, I mean, they were inappropriate and they weren't right? But I knew people, not everybody's gonna like it, but that doesn't mean you have the right to tell somebody, nasty comments and stuff like that. And yeah, I remember when I was shopping with my sister at a grocery store, this woman came up to me, this elder woman on her little, her little cart strolling in, and she walks up to me and she's like, I liked your hair much better before, but I still watch you, and then walked away and didn't even give me a chance to say anything back. It was just like, all right, like it was just my sister's jaw dropped and I'm just sitting there like, that just happened. Some people feel so entitled that they can literally tell somebody like, their value or their worth just because of their hairstyle or like what they're wearing. And that's just not acceptable. Those comments, those, like I said, almost expected, right? The comments that I didn't expect that really, really hurt me were from my own people. Were from people from the countries,
Mhm.
because this particular hairstyle, it's predominantly worn in certain areas.
Okay.
And at the time, some people said that I was making like a political statement and that I was like, just putting out propaganda
Okay.
for certain branches of the government or certain leaders. And
Okay.
that hurt, because it's like, I that was far from the reason why I was wearing those braids. That had nothing to do with why I was wearing those braids. And people, like your own people, will literally like wish really, really, really bad things upon you. And that was a little bit surprising. And it was, I always say this, it wasn't everybody, right? It was a small percentage. Like majority of people welcomed it, embraced it, loved it, but you do have that small percentage you always remember that
Yeah.
that those that you don't forget.
Yeah, and I know it could be shocking sometimes when, from people in your own culture who know the struggles, who know the challenges and face them as well, can be so hard on you that, obviously had very different intentions for why you were just allowing yourself to be yourself on TV.
Hmm.
Um, Hannah, I wanted to ask you, taking into consideration the fact that you decided to transition from the news industry in 2018, to start your own thing and to take a role of advocacy. How do you feel today with the news industry and the role that people of color are playing in newsrooms? Do you feel like there's enough roles for people of color, or do you feel like there's much room for improvement, and why?
I think that there's always going to be much more room for improvement because the climate is always changing, our culture is going to be shifting, and we do have to be advocates in the newsroom. I remember like when I was like, I'm going to wear these braids on TV, or when I want to cover these stories. I remember someone was saying like, oh, I don't know if that's going to work. Like, that story might not be a good fit for the viewers. How is it relevant? How do you tie it in? We have to be advocates, right? Sometimes they don't know what's best for the viewers. They assume based on the past based on what's standard. But if you don't go take that risk or take that jump, you'll never know. I always say, give viewers more credit than you are giving them. Stop assuming that they want to watch the only things that we've been giving them for all these years. Let's spice it up a little bit. Let's show them culture. Let's show them what's going on in this community from this perspective or this lens. So we have to be advocates for those types of stories that we want to share. We have to be advocates for us being able to represent ourselves in our truest forms. We have to be advocates for higher pay, because every time we ask for higher pay, that's going to create an opening for the next person, where that becomes the standard, right? Or asking for more benefits and being able to negotiate at the table and not just accepting what they give us right off the jump, right? So advocating for that, advocating for your coworkers as well. If you see a coworker struggling in the newsroom, or maybe when we're pitching stories, you never know, they might have had a hard day. You don't know what's going on in people's lives. And that person may not have, story pitches for the day, or see how you can support, see what you can do to advocate for your colleagues as well as yourself, as well as the people coming behind you.
Yeah, I love that. Definitely advocate for ourselves and for colleagues, because it's hard trying to pitch a story every single day, let alone turn around a story for the day, and then go home and continue working to find a story for the next day. Hannah, did you ever have struggles with your mental or physical health while in the industry or working in newsrooms?
I would say definitely for physical, for physical, yes, there were, I lost a lot of weight. When you're MMJing, which basically we all know that term in the industry, but where you're shooting, editing, and you're doing the voiceover, and you're the reporter on the story all by yourself, literally a one-person band. So those days, I had a couple of those types of days a week, and that, in addition to the turnaround, and I lost so much weight. And I remember coming home and friends would be like, "What's going on?" And so that was a wake up call to just, hey, be more intentional. And sometimes it's hard. You don't have time to cook, or you're too tired, or you're stressed out for different reasons. So there was that, and then mental side of it. I would say I was very thankful to have friends and family that I could vent to on a weekly basis, because you're internalizing a lot of stuff in this industry. You're seeing a lot of destruction, tragedy after tragedy. So those really get to you, right? And so I remember there were days where I would cry at home, or just call one of my best friends and, just talk about what's going on. Or even with some of the news reporters in the market, we would also have moments where we would kind of talk to each other as well. So, you're going to experience, at least for me, I experienced, challenges in both of those areas. Thankfully, nothing too severe. So I am grateful for that. But I know friends and colleagues who have experienced even, more hardships just because of the nature of this industry.
Yeah, no, completely agree. And I want to ask you, get a little bit more intimate in terms of salary. Was that enough for you when you started out in your career? Was it enough for you to get by?
It definitely was not. So when I was, even, the program that I was in Atlanta, so I was actually I was a trainee, a news trainee. And in that role, I was able to do things like field producing and writing for the morning show, and, and creating content for digital. So that news trainee position afforded me the opportunity to do incredible things. I took that knowing though what to expect, right? You have to know, it's a 6 month, or 4-month program, I believe, 4 to 6 months, and you're able to get in there. And so from the jump that this is how much you're making. This is their standard trainee program, that I was working on. And then so that, that was expected. But after that, I remember applying for my first job, and, markets all across the country. And sometimes you see these job postings, and sometimes they'll list the amount, and you see everything from 30s to 40K, and it's standard in this industry when you're starting off in a top in 100, market, or higher than 100. Unfortunately, it's definitely nothing to build wealth off of or anything like that. We take on these jobs because we really want to be a voice or use storytelling to make change. Hardly ever because we try to get that check. All right. That's typically not why people go work in these types of markets. But I will say that it was just enough for me to pay my bills and do a little bit here and there. Nothing to save off of, nothing to make a huge dent in some of my debt that I had acquired. Just literally the bare minimum that you need to really get through. And
Yeah.
that can be that. I think at some point I was like, I love my job. I love what I do. But I also have goals, right? Like I want to be able to accomplish this. I want to be able to knock out this debt. I want to be able to own property. I want to be able to invest in stocks. I want to be able to do certain things. So I think there's a season and a reason. Like I knew that season was a season, not like a lifelong commitment.
I love that. There's a season and a reason. And one of our colleagues, actually, who I interviewed recently, shared her experience as well. She had to work two jobs to make ends meet, and she was actually getting paid, I believe, around $28,000 on her first job, which is literally, not even enough to get by. And we actually calculated how much she was paying for rent and whatnot, and she was literally living, below the poverty line, which is just absolutely insane.
Yeah, and for all the work you do, you would think that you get twice that amount, right? Like just how
Exactly.
much you work, how hard you work. And like I said, it's just enough to get by, like no long-term investment in your future, no wealth building. And that's a problem.
That is, yeah, that is a problem. Huge problem.
Yeah.
Um, Hannah, so I guess this leads me to asking you, what led you to make the ultimate decision to transition from the news industry into what you're doing now?
Yeah, I knew that like I would see how hard I was working for this organization or this company rather. And I'm like, man, I'm working so hard for these folks. Like, imagine what would happen if I worked that hard for myself. If I built a brand and a company and a media platform where I could just work on my own. I saw that I built my following up, tens of thousands of followers across multiple platforms. And I'm like, I can leverage this. I have an audience, I have a base, and let me take that leap. And I just remember being in my room in Southern Illinois, and I drew four hearts, that ultimately became the logo of my company and my brand. And I said, I want these hearts to represent love and unity and peace. And that's literally what they represent. Of course, positivity as well. And
Love it.
that that moment, thank you. And that moment was just like, all right, you gotta take that leap. And it's scary. You're about to leave your job, your income, your healthcare benefits, everything. Like you're gonna, even though you ain't making a whole lot, you still are making some consistent income, but
Mhm.
you're leaving that stability and that what's familiar to go out into this unknown territory. And that moment was very scary. I remember I would have anxiety attacks. I would have like, I just be like, is this what I want? Is this what I'm gonna do? And then ultimately, yeah, I said, you know what? Yeah, what's the worst that could happen? So thankfully, my mom welcomed me back home with open arms. So I put in, my notice and I moved right back to Georgia and have been with my mom since. And so I've been building and, I'm very grateful for that opportunity because I couldn't be an entrepreneur starting from ground up, having to pay, $1,500 to live in an apartment downtown or whatever the case is. So being able to be at home, knowing that I had this blanket of security, knowing that I had the support from family and friends, knowing that what's the worst that could happen, take this leap. You already have the experience, you have the background, you have the foundation, you have the education. If you ever want to go back, you can go back,
Yeah.
right? So in my head, I was like, just do it and go. And, I talked to mentors, I talked to some friends, and they were very supportive. And that helped give me the push that I needed. And so that's what led me to doing that about almost 3 years ago.
That's amazing.
Thank
That's
you.
amazing. Good for you. And I love that. So that's what the four hearts represent. Peace, positivity, and you
Mhm.
said what were the other two?
Love and unity.
Love and unity. I love
Yeah, and I will say the reason why, because people are like, well, why those four colors? These four colors can be found in both Ethiopian and Eritrean flags,
that.
and there's been a long history between those two nations, and so my family comes from both countries, so
Okay.
it's also a sort of an internal message there about love and unity as well.
Okay, because there was an ongoing war, if I'm not mistaken, between both sides, right? So
Mm-hmm.
that's a beautiful mission that you're, trying to bring together this community and bringing awareness to an issue that, if it wasn't for your Instagram account, I probably wouldn't have read about it otherwise.
Mm.
Just because
Thank you.
you were the one that shed light on the issue, I know for a lot of people,
Thank you.
because we usually don't get news often from other countries, um, here in the US, here in in our homeland.
Mm-hmm.
Um, what else? Wow, this has been an incredible conversation. And you just, I love your mission. I love what you're doing.
Thank you.
Um, I guess my next question is, is there something that you would like the news industry to improve so that we can do better? Which, by the way, the fact that you're already launching this project that you've been working on for the past 3 years is doing better journalism, and it is bringing unity and awareness and consciousness. So you're already doing something better to improve news, but would you
Thank
like to do
you.
anything else?
Ah, yes, there are many things I would like to change. With one being just expanding the range of the stories being told. Give viewers more credit. They do want to hear about these stories that you're not trying to tell or that you think should be a VOSOT when it should really be a whole package, right? Like, let's shift some of our priorities, right? Like that there needs to be an open mind and an acceptance of these ideas and community stories. I think community stories are oftentimes overlooked, or they're just like, oh, that'll be, the kicker for the day, or that'll be the feel good story for the day. But it should be one of the main stories for the day, right? Like, as much, there's a lot of bad things happening in this world, but there's also a lot of good things happening in this world. And, what we're putting out there in the news cycle, like, it has to be more balanced. It has to be more fair. And, and so I think newsletters and people being receptive to highlighting more good stories. I also think giving reporters and anchors more opportunities for their own segments. So I was very, very thankful when I was in Southern Illinois. I did have my own segment. It was called Going Global, and I highlighted people from different parts of the world. And it was amazing, like from South America to Africa to Asia and Europe, like being able to tell their stories of how they came to this country, the differences they're making in the community. So it may not be going global. It may be something else. It may be on healthcare and beauty. It may be on finance. It may be, give reporters that opportunity to have those segments to contribute those content. And it can be a whole day dedicated to that. Don't make them turn around, a story and then produce that. Let them have a whole day to create those types of stories. Those quality packages, those should be, those should be done more. In addition to that, I think that we need to rethink the way we are in the field. I think this demand for reaction and SOTs to really dramatic and tragic incidents and stories, we don't always have to bring back sound. All right, not everything warrants interviewing somebody. Okay, like when something happens, and I have been in those situations, where I get sent out to the field the day of a school shooting, or the day of a drowning in the Mississippi River, or the day someone just passed away getting hit by a car that took off after hitting them, or the day after a homicide, or the day a toddler was found dead at home. It's like those stories, those moments, you don't always have to come back with sound. Sometimes you need to let things breathe. And I think that demand from some news directors, some are more flexible and are more understanding, but some will tell you you need to get out there and at least get one interview, at least get, some reaction. everything doesn't warrant reaction. Everything, everything doesn't need sound, and I think that the newsroom should be understanding. And then in addition to that, I think we should always think about how are we helping the story, right? Never sensationalize. If you're going to tell this story that is super traumatizing to a community, what are you doing to help? What are you doing to raise awareness? Are you highlighting their GoFundMe? Are you making sure that link is attached in your story? Are you making sure that a priority is getting this family or this community the support they need? And I think that should always be at the forefront. And sometimes it's not. And I think the news industry should do a better job of not sensationalizing, but really working to help support the victims of so many tragedies that we cover every single day.
I love that. That's amazing. And it's so true because you're right. The most of the journalists that I've been speaking to, a lot of them have said, we're usually meeting people on their worst days, and you can't always expect a grieving mother to give you soundbite. And yeah, sometimes those stories do need to breathe so that we aren't generating this reaction or this pain and then moving that onto a story and showing it on TV to our audiences to then create a reaction in that audience. What are we gaining from that? I think that goes back to what you just said. Like, are we then really just telling the stories to generate a reaction in the audience, or are we truly telling the story to help a community come together in unity, in peace, in support, or loving support, whatever that may be? But I do agree with you 100% that, the amount of pressure that is put on us, or that we allow news directors to put on us to come back with sound bites, is not often realistic. And that's a good boundary.
To put our foot down. I think sometimes we have to get better at earlier you asked about like advocating in the newsroom, and that's another area where we can advocate. If we feel something is too much or too off, like we should say that's not going to be a good idea, or and that's hard. Like I can say there were times where I should have done that, or I wish I did, going looking back, and I just think hopefully we can learn from the past and try to get a little better at it as we advance.
For sure. Yeah, because it can be hard to speak your truth, to set your foot down, and say, no, this doesn't feel right. But when you do, little by little, and obviously choose your battles. Nobody is telling you to go out and fight your boss and get fired, but choose your battles and, place some boundaries little by little. And if you don't feel comfortable with something, definitely speak up and raise your voice. Defend the same principle that we're defending every single day, which is freedom of speech. Like you have the right to practice it as well as a journalist in the newsroom. So
yep, absolutely.
Hannah, is there anything else that you'd like to add that maybe I haven't asked you?
Oh, just that I want to encourage anybody out there, fellow journalists, to be you and all that you do, because we need you. We need your personality. We need your interview style. We need your hair. We need your look, and there is a space for all of us to exist. And if that space isn't where you're currently at, then don't be afraid to either mold it to be what you want it to be, or consider advancing, to your next chapter. And it is scary sometimes going out on your own. It is absolutely scary. And it's not for everybody, right? I have good friends who are doing really well in the news industry, who have continued to blossom their wings and are continuing to rise from market to market to market. And there's that space for people as well. But I will say, it's important that you identify your tribe, that you identify your group, your family, your friends. Like, don't be afraid to vent. Don't be afraid to call somebody and just talk about the day you had, because it's heavy. It's so heavy. So I would say just, continue pouring into other people, and know that you're not alone. I know we all hear that a lot, but we're definitely not. A lot of us are going through the same experiences, and I don't know. I know that it's gonna get better. It's gonna get better. We are gonna be the generation that makes it better for the next generation. We are the generation. We're breaking barriers. We're breaking glass ceilings. We're doing things for the first time that the people coming after us won't have to think about, oh my gosh, but the worries or the concerns or the hesitation. No, it's been done. So you walk in there and you own that place. Just remember, everything you're doing now is paving the way for somebody else in the future. So always think about that. I love that you brought up advocacy. I love that you talked about, these types of actions that we can take as journalists, because it really is on us. So I just encourage people, let's keep advocating. Let's keep breaking ceilings, and let's just stay in this and keep rising. And don't be afraid to jump at somewhere else too. You are not a failure. If you end up going into a different field, I have friends that left journalism and went into marketing or PR. That does not make you a failure. Okay. That makes you following your heart. That makes you doing exactly what you want to do. So don't ever feel like you didn't do what you needed to do, because you did by doing what you wanted to do.
It's so true. Speaking of following your heart is just filled with wisdom. And hello, you are so aligned with your mission to promote the positivity movement. I just got the chills by hearing you speak and promoting this positivity. I hope that, thousands of journalists listen to this interview right here, because this is literally a message of inspiration, empowerment, and just that permission that maybe some of us didn't know or felt like we needed to just be ourselves inside newsrooms. So thank you. You are amazing. You're so wise. It has been an honor to interview you. I am so happy for you. You're doing so well. Just keep shining, keep being yourself, because you're doing incredible work. And let's do this again soon, hopefully. Because I do agree, we are the generation that is going to help improve the news industry. I mean, it is up to us, because if not, I think, the generation that's starting to graduate now and going into the news industry is probably not going to make it pretty far. Retention rate is just not happening in newsrooms.
They need to increase the pay, all right? Some of these newsrooms, let's get that money up, all right? Let's get those benefits. Let's get those benefits cracking. But no, I just want to say thank you to you as well, Emiliana, for this platform and this space for journalists to connect and really just empower one another. Like, you are such a light. I tell you that, like, beautiful inside and out, and your spirit, your heart, you're just everything, how strong you've been in the field. And I'm a fan of your work. I've seen you from the Capitol to just over the, I'm so thankful for you and this space you've created, and you keep shining as well. And I can't wait for the next one.
Thank you, Hannah. Thank you. It was an honor speaking with you.
Likewise.
Journalists, this one's for you, to help you heal, to help you understand your worth, and to help you know you're not alone. So share the love and subscribe to Spotify and YouTube, and follow us on Instagram. The Awakened Journalist is proud to present Media Healers by Emiliana Molina Fajardo.